So tell me a little bit about World Without Exploitation. What is you all's mission, and what is the goal that you are all are looking to accomplish with the Billboard message that you have here in Speaker Johnson's district?
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate this conversation. World Without Exploitation is our national coalition to combat human trafficking and sexual exploitation. We're the largest coalition in the country. We have nearly 200 member organizations that we work with. Many of those organizations are survivor-led. And we have been working very closely with the Epstein Maxwell survivors who've been very, very clear that it is absolutely time to release all the files. They feel very strongly about this. For them, this is not political at all. It is deeply personal. And that's why we have billboards going up around the country and specifically for our purposes in Speaker Johnson's district.
And so you mentioned that they're going up all around the country. Are they in just whoever's congressional district has the power to vote to release these files? Is this you mentioned it wasn't political, but is it the GOP who seem to be the least kind of willing to speak about the Epstein files and what may be in them and explore that documentation?
Yeah, it's such a good question. So, the reality is, we started our billboard campaign in Colorado Springs. We did that because Virginia Giuffre's family lives in Colorado Springs. But interestingly, it's also an area where there are two Republican members of Congress, one who voted to support the Epstein Files Transparency Act, and one who has not yet voted to support that. And so we were really deliberate. Yes, we wanted to send a clear message that Virginia was truly such an inspiration to so many survivors. Her family has carried her torch, but also we want to urge members and constituents to make sure that these files get released, and all of the files, not just some of them, but all of them.
Do you think, I know that Ms. Guthrie's book was released this week, and some of the expert excerpts, I haven't read it, but some of the excerpts that I read are pretty horrific. Some of the things that she kind of explained in great detail within her book.
Yeah. Well, I think that the release of the book signals a real shift in our culture, right? I think this is a really important cultural moment because in this moment, what we're seeing is the American people who are paying close attention to survivors' voices. And those survivors are demanding accountability. And the government they work for the people. And so I feel really optimistic. We're seeing people from across the aisle and across the pond saying, this is a moment for accountability. And so, while yes, we are always going to have some people who are going to prevent or work to prevent the truth from coming out, I think that what you're going to ultimately see is an overwhelming number of people in America who are going to say, release the files, we want transparency, and we want transparency because we want justice.
What would you say to citizens who maybe feel their hands are tied, people who aren't necessarily politically active, so they don't know what the first steps are to take, but they too supported the administration and supported a lot of the representatives that support the administration
Mhm.
under the guise that these sorts of sex crimes will be taken seriously, that human trafficking in all of its forms, right, whether that's forced labor, forced sex, or people being used as drug mules, in whatever way people are trafficked, they believe that they would take it seriously. How should they get involved? What actionable steps should they take to inform their elected representatives that they are serious about learning what happened, in an effort to prevent it from ever happening again?
Yes, so Marlo, I am a big believer that the more we know, the better we do. So number one on my list is read Virginia's book, listen to survivors. They're on all different forms of media. They're on social media. They're speaking out in such powerful ways. So one, definitely learn more. Two, once you learn more, I think people are really moved by these powerful survivors, and ultimately they become compelled to act. And so action can be very simple. You know, constituent voices really, really matter. So here's a really simple way to do it. You can go to our website, World Without Exploitation, go to the header on our website and plug in your zip code. That will pop your member of Congress, and you can send a letter directly to your member of Congress urging your member to sign the discharge petition and make sure that the Epstein Files Transparency Act is passed in the House. And then we've got to activate in the Senate. And so same applies for senators. Make sure that your voice is being heard with your members of Congress. So often when people think of human trafficking and sex trafficking, they think foreign-born victim, faraway place, being smuggled over international borders, and yet that is not the reality. The reality is that so many victims of sex trafficking are American-born, women, girls, LGBTQ plus youth, young people of color, people living in poverty, and other people who have other vulnerabilities. And so it is critically important that we understand those vulnerabilities, and we understand that very often that is precisely what predators are looking at and working to prey directly on those vulnerabilities. So yes, I think education is key. The other thing that I think is really important, so often when we think about sex trafficking, we are only talking about traffickers and victims. And yet what we also know is if there were no buyers, if there were no sex buyers to fuel exploitation, there would be no business, right? If there were no sex buyers, then we know there would be no sex trafficking at all. And so when we're thinking about this and we're educating ourselves, it's critically important that we understand, yes, the traffickers, we've got to hold them accountable. The victims, yes, we've got to make sure that we're getting them the necessary exit strategies and services, but we also have to be talking about the sex buyers who are fueling the market and causing a tremendous amount of harm.
Is your organization a political organization? Are
Nope.
you all being driven by some bad actors who politically are seeking to take the president down? Just for clarity, let's talk about
Yeah.
your organization and
Sure. To be
and
really
how you
clear,
all.
we're not political at all. The survivors that we work with, they're not political at all. In fact, some of them have actually voted for this administration. They are registered Republicans. And we know survivors are not a monolith. This is not for us political at all. This is strictly for those survivors, deeply personal. This is their lives. They want these files released because for the last 2+ decades, they have experienced a tremendous amount of harm and trauma at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, all the other exploiters. And also, by concealing these files, it's causing additional harm to these survivors. And so from our perspective, we don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, somewhere in the middle, it doesn't matter to us. We are just urging everyone to release the files. And this part's important because I'm sure what you're going to hear from other people is we've released some of these files or we've released the files. Yes, some of the files have been released. We want them all to be released. And there is a definite distinction there.
And in terms of those files, like, do you have knowledge of, in terms of how much has been released versus the actual investigation itself? About how much would you gauge the public is aware of? Is it half? Is it 3 pages? Is it like what are we talking here in terms of the full release of these files?
It's really hard to know kind of where we are in, when and what there is left to be released. We know there's a lot to be released because we're listening to survivors who've said, "Oh, I did all of these interviews," and they have no access to those interviews. So we know for a fact that, that there are all of those interviews, government interviews, both, I will say, both the federal government and the victims definitely interfaced with state governments as well, state police departments as well. So there are a lot of investigative reports that currently exist. We also know that the estate has photos. We know there are videos that were taken. That birthday book that's existed for a really long time, that's just come out. So we've got to make sure that we are doing a much better job for these survivors to make sure that all of these files are released.